Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining my session as we sort of get closer to the end of the day on the second day. I really appreciate your attendance and look forward to talking to you online after this. My name is Keith Goode, and today I'll be talking to you about strategies for coping with a worldwide shortage of SEOs. A little bit about myself. I've been in-house SEO for well over 10 years. Actually, I think I'm coming up on my 13th year at this point, and it's been a while. I've worked for companies like AMD, HomeAway, Dell, and SEO Clarity. Right now, I'm the senior SEO strategist over at IBM, and I do a lot of work with them related to optimizing content, technical SEO, as well as in-house training for the staff there. If you have any interest in following me, feel free to do so. I'm at Twitter at Keith Goode, and I look forward to connecting with you after this. A little bit of light housekeeping. I always do this anytime I present because I am an employee of IBM, and I want to make sure people understand that I'm not IBM, and in fact, at this conference, I'm not here representing IBM. I'm here as Keith Goode, the SEO. So anything I say is not really, forward-looking. It doesn't really sort of divulge any specifics about IBM. None of our secret sauce has been revealed, and none of what I say has been tested by the FDA. So there you go. I do this every time. I just want to make sure I cover my rear, to say the least. So when Bill asked me to speak at State of Search, I wondered, what can I present to you? And I started thinking about what it's like to be an in-house SEO for a large major corporation and how different that is from, say, working for an agency or working even for a small in-house shop. And around this time last year, I saw a video with my good buddy, Eli Schwartz, who did a video with Siege Media and had a discussion about sort of the state of SEO at the time. Now, this was a year ago, and it's amazing how time changes our overall perspective, but how some things don't really change very much at all. I've included a link to the video at the bottom of the slide, so when you get the slides after this, feel free to go check it out. It's actually a very informative, 30-minute video with Eli Schwartz. And if you aren't following Eli on social media, I encourage you to do so. Check him out on LinkedIn, check him out on Twitter, etc. He's a very sharp individual. He worked at SurveyMonkey. And one of the things that he said in the video that really struck a chord with me was how often he was approached by other companies and other agencies to work for them as an in-house person for SurveyMonkey. And I think that's a pretty common thing for SEOs or well-known brands to be approached by companies to come work for them. I think the assumption, of course, is that if you work for a company like IBM or Dell or any of these other major corporations like SAP, Oracle, you know what you're doing and you have a broader sense of how SEO impacts your organization's revenue, but also how every other aspect of the organization impacts SEO. That sort of symbiotic relationship between all of the departments. And it was a really interesting video to watch because he stated that there is a true skills gap in SEO. And I think I believe that because I see a lot of folks that contact me on a regular basis who are basically running the ad for that job for months and sometimes up to a year or more. And it shows that they're not really finding what they're looking for in the talent that's available in the pool that's out there. So I wanted to talk to you today about how you can cope with that. How do you cope with basically not being able to hire an extraordinarily talented SEO or a well-skilled SEO with long years of experience for your organization right away? You still need to get that talent filled, right? So let's talk a little bit about that today. So basically, based on what Eli was saying, established SEOs are in demand, to say the least. It's a nearly constant stream of job opportunities, and many of these positions remain open for a long time. Now, this was a year ago, and here we are a year later. A pandemic has occurred in the interim. And despite that fact, organizations are still hiring SEOs like crazy. So rather than a shrinking job market in the face of a pandemic, companies are seeing that, wow, being online is more important than ever. How do we get more online traffic coming to our site? How do we gain in that particular channel? So, and in fact, you can actually see jobs are on the rise. I pulled this from backlinko.com. They have an incredible amount of really good content over there. And one of my favorite pieces of content from them is from their 2020 SEO jobs report. So you're going to see a lot of slides from that report here. I highly recommend you go check out that particular report on backlinko.com/SEO-jobs-report. But definitely check it out. And as you can see, you know, really the pandemic struck hard here in the United States in March. Job growth has not slowed down for SEOs in that period of time. But here's the problem for pretty much any organization that's trying to hire right now. There are challenges to building a team if you don't already have a team. And there are challenges to keeping a team if you have a team. So let's talk a little bit about the first of those problems right now. The problem, of course, as Eli mentioned, is there is a true skills gap. While if you go and you do a search on LinkedIn for SEO for a candidate, in the United States, about 938,000 people sort of meet that criteria. But really, if you look for SEOs who have that in their job title, it's actually right at 20,000 people. So 20,000 SEOs, officially SEOs, are available in the United States for those jobs that you're looking to fill. Who are those other people, though? You know, 938,000 versus 20,000. How many? And who are those people? Well, some are copywriters who've been trained to write SEO copy. Some are marketing practitioners who happen to know SEO. Some of those are digital strategists who happen to know SEO because it helps promote their products or services. Some are PPC practitioners who are wise, and they know that yeah, if you have a good organic presence, you probably have good quality scores, etc. Sometimes you have developers who are savvy enough to know how important development is to SEO, and sometimes it's people who've taken a class in SEO, like one of mine that I've given at Dell and at IBM. And sometimes we do find those people on LinkedIn, even though they've only taken one class, claiming that they know SEO, which is a real challenge. And sometimes if you train someone internally, they go around the organization saying that they're SEOs, and that's why I'm going to talk about that in just a little short while. But frankly, these are very likely not the people who are going to help you build an SEO strategy for your large site. Frankly, the jobs outnumber the available talent. 11,000 jobs on Indeed for SEO right now. So you're like, well, there's 20,000 people in the United States who have SEO on their title, 11,000 jobs. Surely some of those people would be looking for jobs. You'd be surprised though. Jobs are often located in specific places that aren't really relevant to a lot of users. But as you can see in this map here, again, this is from the Backlinko report. New York dominates the job market right now, followed. It varies based on who you're looking at. I've pulled information here from both Backlinko as well as from Indeed, as well as from LinkedIn. San Francisco, Austin, Chicago, Atlanta, the usual suspects generally dominate the job market, but the most qualified candidates may not live anywhere near those large cities and may not want to for good reason. Remote working isn't always an option either, which is a real challenge. There are a lot of companies that are still stuck in the 20th century, and they believe that you have to be where all of your other coworkers are in order to be effective. As you can see, I pulled this number, I believe, from LinkedIn. They had, no, this is actually from Indeed. They had 11,000 jobs. Of the 11,000 jobs, only 584 of those were considered remote jobs. It's not to say that the folks that have listed for jobs in San Francisco and Austin aren't necessarily looking for people who are able to work remote, but they actually are saying that they prefer someone to be in that city. The challenge really is that we often limit ourselves, and that makes assembling our team much more difficult. So first and foremost is availability. You know, there are 20,000 SEO practitioners in the United States right now. Some of that availability may not be there. I mean, let's be frank. Your ideal candidate might be happy right where they are, and hiring them away would be extraordinarily difficult. You know, they may work for fantastic companies with great benefits and great environments and great team atmospheres, and they might be in that sort of sweet spot where you've got a great environment, but you've also got an executive uh, group that actually understands the importance of SEO, and why would you leave that, right? So hiring them away would be extraordinarily difficult. The other, of course, as I mentioned before, is geography. You might find the right person for the job, but you may not be where they want to be, and that's a real challenge. Affordability. Let's be frank, your ideal candidate may be beyond your budget, especially if you're a smaller company. If you take a look at the median salaries for SEOs, that they wildly vary based on where you are in geography. I mean, it's between 48,000 and 75,000 median. If you look at the lines here, though, you know, that could go up to 150,000, that could go up to 200,000, just depending on which state you're in. So that becomes an affordability issue for your company at that point. And sometimes it's a lack of skills. You've got a large pool of candidates who just don't have the number of skills that you're looking for. Oftentimes, if you see a job for an SEO strategist, they're looking for someone with a minimum of 4 years of experience. You might have a pool of folks that only have 2 years of experience. Well, I mean, let's be frank, SEO changes just about every 6 months. So what difference does it make, right? So you take a look at the skills that are out there, though. You know, sometimes they might have the right marketing skills, but they don't have the right technical skills. If you take a look at this graph, this is from the SEMrush Academy doc on SEO skills that are important for 2020. You know, 31% technical SEO, 45% need to know HTML and CSS. You might get someone who's highly qualified in link building or content writing, but they don't know anything about HTML or CSS. So keep in mind, SEO is a multidisciplinary field, and not everyone comes out of either college or their previous experience with both marketing skills and technical expertise. That's a real challenge sometimes. And also, one of the challenges that you face is, okay, you've got the qualified candidate, but where do they align? You know, are they lawful good? Are they 100% white hat and they listen to everything that Google says and just take that as gospel? Or are they chaotic evil and then they're full black hat and they're ready to buy a bunch of links for you and get you penalized later on down the road? So for short-term gains, right? So what is the alignment that you're looking for, and is the qualified candidate that you're looking at fall under that alignment? So some of the solutions to these problems, you know, some opportunities for expanding your opportunities may be this: consider remote employment. As soon as I posted the title of my my particular session here at State of Search, I got a response from a gentleman over in Poland. He goes, well, you know, maybe companies aren't looking hard enough. I've applied for roles, including low-end content positions over the last 3 months, and along with the hundreds of other applicants, but I've only been approached by one other company directly. So strangely, that was via Twitter. Later, he says, my hypothesis is that when he moved from Poland to Berlin, and he thought the job market in Berlin would be better, it just didn't work out. He only got to the interview stage with US and UK firms outside of search. So, you know, you might have a highly qualified person, and in fact, I know this person. They've been in the industry for a while. I think they probably know SEO quite well, but they're having a difficult time finding a job because of where they're located. So, you know, I would disagree that the companies aren't looking hard enough. I think maybe they're not flexible enough. You really have to get to the point now. We're in the midst of a pandemic, folks. And you just go from news article to news article, and many of them are saying, we're not going back to the normal that you thought we knew. We may not be going back to the office at all in many cases. And so that's really a big, drastic change. And companies have to pivot in order to meet that changing environment. I'm reminded of IBM, my employer. I remember in the early 90s, they were hiring folks and having them in certain locations, and then, you know, they basically changed leadership for a department in the 90s, and that person would then need to move to Boston or to New York or, you know, to I don't know, Austin to stay with that team. And IBM became known as I've been moved. And then, of course, the late 90s hit, early 2000s. A lot more people were working remotely. IBM embraced this idea. They're like, ooh, we can save on real estate. Fantastic. And so a lot of people were working remotely. And so IBM became, I'm by myself. And so at some point, though, our leadership said, no, we want everybody in an office. And this was just a couple of short years ago that they were saying, we really need you in an office with your coworkers. We need you co-located. Then the pandemic hit. So they spent a lot of money moving people to office locations where they needed to be, only to find out that they couldn't really have a lot of people in the office during a pandemic. So interesting how that works, huh? So once you get past, let's see, where do we go here? I'm gonna go back to here. Once you get past some of the limitations that you've set for yourself, maybe you won't get over the budget hurdle. Maybe you can't afford someone who's at $150,000 per year. But you know, what are some other tips and tricks that I can give you that you can use to help with that? So first and foremost, I highly recommend thinking about how you can enable your organization to be SEO aware in all cases, right? So train the team that you want with the team, sometimes with the team that you have, but sometimes you can hire with less experience. Most jobs really just need boots on the ground people who are doing the hard work of SEO, right? You can train in other areas. So you might get a candidate who is a fantastic copywriter, but they don't know anything about CSS, HTML. They don't know anything about JavaScript. They don't know how to crawl sites. They don't understand what response codes are. Well, you know, that's easily trained. Those things are easily trained. So hire with less experience. You can train in the other areas and send them, you know, here's an idea. Train them in other areas or send them to conferences like this one. They can learn a lot more there. Benefits of this are there. It's affordable and it kind of builds loyalty with these people who you gave a chance to. The risks, of course, you might train them right out of your organization. They might become such a good candidate that suddenly someone else comes along and hires them out. So make sure you're an awesome company and that people want to stay with you. Another thing you can do is you can train existing employees. Let's be frank. A lot of people, they've done the same job for years. Maybe they want to learn something new, all right? And let's also be honest with ourselves that various other disciplines in your organization already affect SEO in one way or another. You can train them to do their jobs in a way that doesn't negatively impact SEO. I do caution against one-size-fits-all enablement. I've done this for years, and here's what I found. It's basically worthless. So in the best case scenarios that I've seen, you get attendees who leave feeling like they learned something, but then they forget everything. And then suddenly they're leaning on you because they're like, I think this is SEO related, but I don't know for sure. And you're like, well, yeah, you were in my class. You should know this. In the worst case scenario, they think they know SEO and they will get it wrong, really, really wrong. And then they basically put you in a situation where you've got to go around and clean up after them because they've gone through and they've done something completely opposite of what you told them to do. And now they've actually cost you organic traffic in many ways. So I would say one-size-fits-all enablement for your organization is a bang idea. You've really got to customize the training for each discipline. You have to. Crawling, indexing, ranking, useful responses. These are all part of the Google process of getting you into their system and then ranking in their system and then spitting out sort of these instant answers. You have to show people where along the line they impact SEO. Do they prevent Google from crawling as developers or systems engineers? Do they basically have a ton of duplicate content so your digital strategists just keep popping the same content across multiple pages? Have they basically decided to use useless marketing jargon instead of actual practical language on their pages? And have they basically established zero relevance for your pages, which would mean you don't rank very well. You might be indexed, but you won't rank. There are a ton of ways that each individual discipline impacts SEO, and you can really, really bring the training down to them and let them know, hey, when you're doing this, keep this in mind. You can impact SEO negatively. I haven't used this slide in years at this point, but it's still relevant. It really is relevant. It all works together. This machine all works together if everybody's pulling their weight and they're basically doing their part to keep you up and running. And I would be remiss if I said in this particular scheme that you're looking at things, that you didn't also consider your agencies. And I'm not saying this because a lot of my friends in this conference today and yesterday run agencies. I'm saying they're vitally important. Having an external view of your site is a real benefit to you. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely abhor when an agency or a tool goes around me and goes to my VP and basically sets up a meeting. I'm looking at one company in specific this week. I don't think you know who you are, but I will tell you about it later. Who went to a VP and said, hey, we have a great tool and your team won't look at us. And rather than, the VP saying, well, I trust my team, come back later, they went straight to her instead. So that's very annoying, but I will say that agencies can be a real benefit by saying, hey, here's our external worldview of this. Have you considered this? And as an in-house SEO, I'll tell you, no, gosh, I didn't even think about that. That makes perfect sense. They'll catch things that I haven't caught, and I'm happy for that. So yes, definitely partner with your agencies in that case, and they can actually fill the skills gap for you while you're building that in-house team. So keep that in mind for sure. It's really important to seek executive support and build standards for your site across the board. It's really, really important. You can either fight 20 different department heads by yourself, or you can get the highest level executive that you have on your site to give you the authority over those heads of department. You can, and of course, by doing this, this allows you to implement rigorous standards. Okay, standards are a must to have in addition to your enablement. Yes, it's nice if somebody thinks about it and they remember that they need to do these things, but it's really, really much more important for them to understand that there are also sort of guardrails in place, and that's where the standards come in. And an additional standard that you can put in place are additional requirements for your QA processes. So, there was a post earlier this week on Twitter. Someone was saying, hey, our development team really screwed up our hreflang tags. They used UK instead of GB for hreflang. And how can I prevent this in the future? And I suggested, hey, put this in the QA process. If it does not pass the QA process, it does not go into production, and their code sits idle until they fix it. Very, very important to have that going on. So true organizational change is a top-down mandate. Very, very important to have your folks in the executive positions behind you in all cases. So I will say this as I wrap up, we are hiring, so feel free to reach out to either me or Jesse McDonald, who's also presenting at State of Search, who presented earlier this morning. And we'll fill you in on it if you're looking to work for IBM. Sadly, right now, we are only hiring in Austin and Raleigh. So keep that in mind as you reach out to us. Thank you very much. My name is Keith Goode. Feel free to reach out to me on Google or on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I'm really happy to connect with you. So thanks very much. Have a great rest of your day.